About the 1994 adaptation of this literary classic, Janet Maslin of the New York Times says, "Ladies, get out your hand-hemmed handkerchiefs for the loveliest Little Women ever on screen." About the 2019 adaptation, The Observer UK's Wendy Ide notes that 150-year-old literature never felt so alive. And in a listicle about which Hogwarts house each character would end up in, Jesse Atkin of ScreenRant.com says, "Joe would be a Slytherin." On this episode of Ruined Childhoods, we decide the fate of Little Women.
Sequel. Reboot. Which one will it be? It's the Ruined Childhoods podcast.
Greetings, Starfighters.
Greetings, Dan.
Welcome to Ruined Childhoods.
How's it going, Dan, and everybody out there listening?
On behalf of everybody listening, it's a beautiful day in the neighborhood.
Wow, okay, all right. Okay, I'm trying to think if there's any way to tie things into the episode that we're doing today, but I don't think that there is.
Well, if that neighborhood is Concord, Massachusetts,
yeah, I suppose so.
and it's the middle of winter and the snow has fallen and it's picturesque, then it would be indeed a beautiful day in the neighborhood. No Mr. Rogers connection. It was just the phrase that came to mind.
Gotcha. Fair enough. This is Ruined Childhoods. That's Dan. I'm John. We're brothers. We talk about movies a lot. And we, on this podcast...
And you have to listen.
And, well, I mean, they've chosen to listen. And on this episode,
chosen to listen.
We're going to be talking about Little Women, the classic, and how, and we're going to go...
The movie, yeah.
Well, yes, the movie. It's still a classic.
Oh, yeah, no, we're not just going to be talking about any Little Women.
Yeah. Specifically two of the Little Women adaptations.
Yes.
And we're going to talk about
there have been so many.
Yeah, we're going to just like kind of talk a bit about our thoughts on these movies, as well as the whole shtick of the show, which is how we would bring these back today as something brand new and fresh. And this is an interesting one because this had been done just 3 years ago. And, I don't know.
Well.
Yeah, quite well.
And it was very well received.
So I want to start off, Dan, by asking you, a high school language arts teacher, is Little Women in your wheelhouse? Is it in your curriculum ever?
No, Little Women is not in my curriculum. I have had students that have read it as like an independent reading choice. Okay. And they do tend to like it.
Sure. Famously written by Louisa May Alcott.
Yes. And
that's all I know about it.
Yeah. Well, and I think, and it's, based on her upbringing, and it's a fictionalized version of her childhood and her relationships with her sisters and how she came to become a writer. And it's, and she wrote Little Women, and she wrote, there was Little Men.
And Joe's Boys.
Joe's Boys.
Yeah.
Yeah. So there was it was a franchise, really.
Yeah.
It was kind of it was a whole thing. There was a whole universe. The Alcott universe, the Alcott literary universe existed. The Marchiverse?
I don't know.
Because their last name is March.
Right. And that's why we're doing
this.
It
is our last episode in March. Because their last name is March.
Right, yeah. Indeed it is. And I think I'm just going to launch into a synopsis that I believe covers both the 1994, it's 1994, correct? Correct. The 94 and the 2019 versions. So yeah, I'm just going to launch into that, and then we'll just get moving from there.
I'd do anything to hear that synopsis right now.
Okay. 4 sisters from the respected but financially struggling March family navigate life from childhood into early adulthood, each pursuing their life calling while also navigating the question of needing for a man to propel them into success. Joe is the writer, Amy is the artist, Meg is the beauty, and Beth is the musician. But when Beth contracts scarlet fever, a shockwave is sent through the family, but gives Joe an even bigger push to become a successful writer. All the while, Joe becomes friends with the wealthy neighbor's grandson, Theodore Lawrence, aka Teddy, aka Laurie, who falls deeply in love with her. But as time goes on and she declines his marriage proposal, he ends up marrying Amy after they reconnect in adulthood in Europe. But despite all of the odds being stacked against her, Joe is inspired to write a story about her family that changes the reality of the March family. So,
Indeed, yeah. Should we run down some cast members?
Yeah, do you want to do 94 and I'll do 2019? Or
Let's
do you
that.
do you
So
want to
90...
do you want to name a character and then we can each say?
Oh, yeah. Who did? Should we say who we think did it better?
We'll get to that.
Or who we preferred? Oh, we'll get to that.
I think so.
Okay, so let's start with the matriarch of the March family, the affectionately known Marmee,
Right.
who is played by Susan Sarandon
And Laura Dern.
Mm-hmm. And by the way, I don't know if did you look into why it's Marmee?
I read probably on Wikipedia or something that it was likely intended to be pronounced mommy, but because of the dialect,
Mommy.
Yeah. Why did
New England, mommy.
Yeah, mommy.
That was what. So I got this from New York Times.
Yep.
So it was basically that that mommy was a new American pet name for mother, and it hadn't really been written out yet. There was no literary form of it.
Yeah.
And, there was ma and pa, but no one had really written out mommy. There was no formal spelling, but in New England, where they probably pronounced it mommy.
Yeah.
Mommy. Alcott, I think, assumed that there was an R in there. And I mean, this doesn't seem like it was a big mystery, but it seems like that's just kind of been a decision to pronounce it as Marmee in all of the many versions. I think Katharine Hepburn was in the
first one was, I think, 33. There was a 33, a 49. I'm just going off the dome right now. And then there was, one, they just keep on doing them.
Yeah. So anyway, so 1994, we've got Susan Sarandon as Marmee, and in 2019, Laura Dern as the eldest March sister, Meg.
Right.
Trini Alvarado.
Right. And Emma Watson.
Uh-huh. And as Joe, we'll just go in age order, condescendingly. No. As Joe March, the narrator, made the proxy for Louisa May Alcott in 1994, we have the Academy Award nominated Winona Ryder
and Saoirse Ronan. I don't know. Was she nominated for anything for this one? I don't remember.
I don't know if she was. We did have some acting nominees in that cast.
Right. Oh, you know what? We'll get to somebody who was nominated for Best Supporting Actress very soon.
So okay. The
Saoirse Ronan was nominated for Best Actress.
Yes. Yeah. Okay. I thought so. She usually is.
She's very good.
It's very good. Enjoyed her work in Lady Bird.
Wonderful.
So anyway, so then you have Beth, who in 1994 is played by in her screen debut, Claire Danes.
Yeah, and then Eliza Scanlon in the 2019.
Yes. Of course. And then as the youngest sister, Amy, as young Amy in 1994, we have Kirsten Dunst having quite a year in 1994.
Amazing.
And again in 2022, Oscar nominated this year. 1994 was her breakout in Little Women and Interview with the Vampire, like at the same time. And that, so she plays young Amy, and then older Amy is played by Samantha Mathis.
Right. And it's Florence Pugh, who was nominated for Best Supporting Actress, in for the 2019 version. Dan, did you want to go through some more? There were some. Well, I guess okay. Well, I know that we have to definitely do Laurie.
Well, yeah, Laurie. So in 1994, it's Christian Bale.
2019, Timothée Chalamet.
Of course. Where Ronan goes, Chalamet follows. I guess, except for all the movies that he's done recently.
Kind of. Right.
Yeah, she wasn't in Dune. She would be good in Dune. She would fit in Dune somehow.
Who would fit in Dune?
Maybe the new one.
Oh,
Saoirse
Ronan. Okay.
Yeah. And then as his grandfather, Mr. Lawrence, it's John Neville of the Adventures of Baron Munchausen,
and it's Chris Cooper. Yeah.
Right. And then I
want you to talk about who Aunt March is.
Oh, Aunt March. Yes, Aunt March in the 94 version is Mary Wicks from Sister Act.
Sister Mary Lazarus, the famous Sister Mary Lazarus. And
got any butter pecan?
And that's Meryl Streep in the 2019. I don't think that the 94 patriarch of the March family is of any note, but Bob Odenkirk in 2019 really, stealing the scene when you first see him, just because it's like Bob Odenkirk.
Yeah, I really, I thought I was looking at the 1994 one and I wasn't. But yeah, I was curious. I was looking, I think that in the 94 one, because doesn't he have the line like, "Oh, how I missed my Little Women"?
I know that he says that in the 2019. I don't remember if he says it in the 94.
No. In the 94, actually, I think Susan Sarandon has
the titular line.
Yes. I don't know. I can't find it anywhere who played him, but he's really he makes less of an impact.
He's just wallpaper at a certain point. Yeah.
Yeah. And then also we have Gabriel Byrne in the 1994 version as Friedrich Bayer, the German professor who hooks up with Joe.
Yeah, that's Louis Garrel in the I'm sure I'm saying it. It's probably like Louis Garrel in the 2019.
It could be.
Yeah, and then
who plays the tutor? Mr. Brooke.
That in 2019 is James Norton.
Norton, right? It's Eric Stoltz in 94.
Stoltz. That was a little distracting.
It was a little distracting. Also, imagine seeing this movie when it came out in 1994, like weeks after Pulp Fiction comes out, and there's Eric Stoltz as like the heroin dealer. Yeah, this came out Christmas 1994.
Solid Christmas movie.
And great, like really family friendly. In fact, I had it on early this morning, and my 8-year-old, almost 8-year-old daughter Chloe walked in, and it was like, she caught the end of it the other day when I had it on, and she really wanted to go back and watch it, and that's what she's been like asking to go back and watch. But it's not surprising. She's a big fan of The Secret Garden.
Oh, okay.
She really liked that.
Similar
the
vibe for sure. Yeah, it's really fascinating to have watched, because I watched both versions, and to see them back to back is a little jarring. And it's interesting because, I mean, I feel like had I watched the 94 version first, I might have liked it more, but it's hard to watch one when you're comparing it to the one that, the more recent one, where I feel like aligns more with my preferences when it goes to going to the movies. It's directed by Greta Gerwig, who's absolutely amazing. It has this incredible cast who I love in some of their greatest performances, which is a little difficult to say because you look at somebody like Florence Pugh and you're just like, well, Midsommar is kind of like her big thing, but you see her in this and you're just like, oh my God, she is amazing.
She's really wonderful.
Some of
in Little Women. I mean,
the way that she talks to Laurie when he starts to kind of like make advances on her when they're in Europe is just kind of like, oh, damn, like that feels really real. And what I really appreciate about the 2019 version is that they really feel like, and I know they do this in the 94 also, because I'm sure it's in the book, but like they use a lot of kind of slang, but it feels more natural the way that they're doing it in the 2019 because they're acting more like, I don't know, like the way that kids act and not the way that people act playing kids playing. Does that sound weird?
Right. Yes. No, I understand. I didn't rewatch the 2019 version recently, but I saw it in the theater, and it was actually something I was thinking about it because I remember feeling like the 2019 version, even though it was very, it was historically set and faithful and all that to the book setting, it felt like the attitude behind it was modern, not in a way that got in the way of the storytelling, not in a way that like Sofia Coppola's Marie Antoinette.
Oh yeah.
Which anachronistically was very contemporary at the time. I felt like I felt like what Greta Gerwig's version did was take what was in the book. And it's clear because you could see it. It's this like the same in the 94 version. It's the same. I mean, like there's some things structurally that are different, but like it's the same story. It's the same scenes.
Yeah.
The same things happen. But what I had remembered was that in Greta Gerwig's version, it felt more like we are taking this and we are not changing it, but we are showing it to you through the lens of the 20 teens.
Sure. Yeah.
And and I know like it came out in 2019, so I'm sure it was being made, but it also comes out as the Me Too movement builds and
sure.
Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, no, I was just going to say, it's like, yeah, of course. I mean, this is a story that is very much...
It was timely.
Yeah.
It was in 2019. Sorry, that's what I wanted to say. It actually felt more timely in 2019 than I think it might have in 1994, where it kind of just plays as, oh, here's this great old book that people love and no one has made a movie about it in a while.
Well, and I think that, to what you're saying, and of course we are acknowledging we are two men talking about this. So we understand that we do not know what this experience is like. And having not read the book, sorry, I couldn't have done that in the past week. I don't know exactly how the book lays out this aspect of it, but in the 94 version, it just plays linearly. There's no, time jumping the way that the 2019 version does, which I know that a lot of people had a hard time keeping track of which storyline was which. I did not have a problem with that at all. And the 2019 version also made more of a big deal out of the relationship between Joe and the publisher, played by Tracy Letts, who, when Tracy Letts shows up, you're in for a treat. Love me some Tracy Letts. And Tracy Letts as the publisher is just perfect.
There's no publisher in the 94 version.
It's just by letters.
Barely,
it's just correspondences by letters. So what happens is there's more going on between the two of them, more interplay between the two of them, and you see him encouraging her to make sure that at the end of the story, she either dies or gets married. And it makes you question what's really happening to the character, because she's writing herself with this one, this one suitor, the Friedrich character, essentially offering himself to her and, just kind of like showing that he is interested in being with her, and her brushing him off. But then you kind of have this moment where it's like, okay, now is what's about to happen the way that she's writing it to happen in this story, or the way that it really happened for Joe in the reality of the movie? Because then she chases him and they become, a hot little item.
So like that's the fiction ending, but her brushing him off is the
Yeah,
reality. You
it's
think?
almost just like, or it's like she goes with him because it's the ending that the publisher would want. It's like, it's almost like the book, like being able to write this book is dictated by how the publisher kind of encourages her to write her stories. And I don't know. I mean, because this is a story. We know that this
Right.
is based on Louisa May Alcott's life, but it's still a story. And it's what I just really appreciated how the 2019 version really made a moment of that. They also gave the publisher, Tracy Letts' character, more of a story. And there's this great moment, and Dan, I know you didn't rewatch this one, but there's this great moment where he actually gets her book and he rejects it. Or, like, she sends him the first like few chapters, or whatever, and he rejects it. And then there's this scene where he's like at home with his family, and he has
Yeah.
this great interchange between himself and his wife, where she's like, oh, I told my mom that you're doing well. And he's like, okay. And she's like, you don't tell your family that I'm doing. And he's like, they don't ask, like, whatever. Like, it's just like this fun, like, real life moment between these people. And then their kids
Yeah.
come in and they're just like, what happens to the March family? Like, blah, 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 blah. So
Right.
they're the ones that get him to can reconsider the book and publish it, which is a really nice story. And I love it. In the ending, you see the first book like being made, and you see like the leather of the book binding and everything, and her getting it and like watching it being made, and it's really satisfying. And while we're talking about the difference between the two versions, I also want to point out that the 2019 version, although, yes, you said before, they have all of the same beats, all of the same things happen. And I don't know what the running time difference is between the two. It didn't feel like the 2019 version was that much longer, but I feel like it gave a little bit more breathing room, and it gave a little bit more context in between scenes. Like when Joe comes back from going to see the play, and she finds out that oh my god, why am I? Is it Amy? Amy who burns the book? Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And in the 2019 version, you see her ripping out the pages and lighting them on fire, and then you see Joe at the play, and then you see her and then the next day you see them have a conversation about Lori inviting her to go ice skating on the lake. And in the 94 version, you don't see anything happen. It's like, oh, we're going to the play, but we only have the 4 tickets, so sorry, Amy, you can't go. And then it just goes like cut to Joe returning from the play, and not
Yeah. And Amy's in bed, and then there's the manuscript in the
exactly.
fire. So there's a 20-minute runtime difference.
It doesn't feel like it's not that much of a difference, and it really helps.
I agree.
And it really helps it feel more complete. And
I do think not having read the book, I do get the impression, though, that Greta Gerwig took more liberties, and I agree with you. I think they paid off. I think the choices paid off. But go ahead, you were saying.
No, I was just going to say that I don't want to make it seem like I didn't like the 94 version. I feel like it is exactly what a mid-90s family film feels like. And
exactly.
And it's like it's just fitting in with the rest of the movies that are coming out around then. And it's an iconic movie. Like, that is a very well-regarded movie. And
oh yeah,
it does have great performances. Winona Ryder's fantastic in it. Kirsten Dunst is amazing in it. I did not like the older Amy. Samantha Mathis.
Yeah,
just very distracting because it's like that's not Amy. Yeah.
Right.
But Florence Pugh definitely was able to characterize. It almost seemed like she was the second youngest, not the youngest. It seemed like Beth was the youngest.
Yeah.
I don't know if that really matters, but the age when she ages up, like you can tell she's older.
Well, and age is definitely a thing in this because you've got Laurie ends up with Amy, and there's a considerable, age difference between them. I mean, I don't know, maybe 10 years.
You think so? It's hard. It's really hard to say, but they never say the ages, so you don't really know.
I'm trying to
Well,
think,
if we're talking about age differences, let's talk about Gabriel Byrne and Winona Ryder.
Well, that's where I was going. I was starting small and then building up to Gabriel Byrne and Winona
21
Ryder.
year age difference.
Yeah. Like that's practically another Winona Ryder at that point.
Yeah, very much so.
I don't know how old, but like
she was early 20s.
Actually, she must have been in her mid 20s by then.
Right.
She must have been, but still.
Yeah. Another thing that I did want to mention about the 2019 version, and it's amazing. It's only a 20-minute difference, huh? Because it gave I don't want to say equal attention, but it gave proper attention to each of the daughters in considerable ways. Okay, with Meg, you see her in her married life with the tutor, Booth, whatever, I forget his name.
Yeah.
And
Brooke,
that's what it was. I know a guy named Brooks Booth. So so I, it was on the mind. So anyway, you see their life together. You see their financial struggles. You get a more vibrant picture of her life after moving out of their house growing up. And then with Beth, you get an opportunity to see her and Mr. Lawrence forming this bond as she is welcomed into his home to play the piano that belonged to his daughter who had passed away.
Which, man, talk about all of the symbolism and meaning around Beth. I had started watching the 94 version again, and one of the very first things is I think when Marmee comes in and it's like, Beth, how's your cold?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And also Beth rhymes with death.
Oh, yeah, that's true. What's up, literary arts guy, language arts teacher?
Yeah, no, I'm totally look, I could dig in deep and be like, well, Beth is derivative of Elizabeth and named for blah, blah, blah. But no. But just, Beth rhymes with death. That's weird. But it foreshadows it because first it's like, oh, she has a little cold and then she gets sick from the German family, but then she gets better. Yeah. But then never really gets better.
Right.
Doesn't really get better.
And I think that this is where some of the time difference comes in, because in the 94 version, you really do see the Hummels, the German family, where I think in the 2019, you don't actually see them.
You don't see them?
I don't really remember seeing them. I remember them going to bring them food anyway, but there's the moment where Claire Danes as Beth, is holding this baby who's clearly very sick, and it's just oh damn, she is getting it.
Oh, she is. That baby is just germs. Yeah. I'm not being derogatory towards Germans. No. I mean germs.
Yes.
But
Claire Danes does an amazing job. She's fantastic in it. Yeah.
Claire Danes is a fantastic actress who I've always enjoyed her work.
Yeah.
Enjoyed My So-Called Life. Enjoyed her in Romeo and Juliet and Homeland.
Mm-hmm.
It's Homeland. And Homeland.
Yeah. And so, going back to what I was saying about each character kind of getting their proper moments. And I feel like, Chris Cooper's performance as Mr. Lawrence is so good because you really feel his connection to her because he sees his daughter who had passed in her, and there's nothing that's ever like weird about their relationship. He just truly like has this fondness for her and appreciates the way that she plays the piano, and he gifts her this new piano, and it's just like really, really sweet. And it feels more abrupt in the 94 version when all of a sudden she is gifted a piano by him, and it's just like, all right.
Yeah.
Who are you again?
Yeah,
The
they
guy
do
across the
develop
street?
it.
Yeah.
Yeah, they do. They do
Yeah.
develop it a lot more
Yeah.
in the 2019.
And then
I'm remembering it all.
and then with Amy, when they're in Europe, especially, and you see her in her like studio where she's, going steady with this other guy, Fred, and it's like on the cusp of him asking her to marry him, and then Laurie comes in and he does this whole thing, and he's I feel like Timothée Chalamet must have taken a lot of cues from Christian Bale's performance and like Chalamet them up just a little bit. Because I feel like Christian Bale definitely had the youthful exuberance needed for this character who's just like this silver spoon kid who kind of just doesn't give a shit about anything. Nothing really matters, but I don't know. And Chalamet,
well, he's raised among artists and
right, which
musicians.
Does it remind you of somebody else? Timothée Chalamet, perhaps. IRL. So,
well, yeah, no, and it's funny that you said that because I felt like appearance wise, it's interesting because I've never thought to myself, oh man, Christian Bale and Timothée Chalamet should totally play brothers, but or father son,
yeah.
But when I was watching it and I saw Christian Bale, I was like, oh wow, he does look like the template for Timothée Chalamet's. Whereas the rest of the movie, I didn't feel like, oh, this is what they were going for.
Right.
It did feel like there was some closeness in that performance. I think I preferred the Timothée Chalamet take on Laurie a bit.
I think I did too, especially first of all, his chemistry with Saoirse Ronan clearly is second to none, and Christian Bale and Winona Ryder. I don't know. It's not just there as much, but in that first scene when they're at that party and they meet each other and they're kind of like silly dance, like crazy dancing. I think that's one of those moments where it definitely feels more modernized in the 2019 version. But there's something about Saoirse Ronan and Timothée Chalamet doing it where it feels more genuine, whereas the 94 one feels more acty.
Do you think that's because as a contemporary audience member, you like it's almost like a shorthand that's there, like because how many was it just 2 films that they were in
was Lady Bird together with directed by
Lady
Greta
Bird.
Gerwig, and oh, why am I blanking?
Were they in another one together?
Oh my god, I'm completely blanking right now. Saoirse Ronan.
Yeah, it feels like they would have done at least like a trilogy together.
Well, they were both in the French Dispatch, but not in the same storylines.
Oh, were they both in the same Woody Allen movie?
Oh, I don't know.
Oh, no, never mind. I don't think she was in it. He was.
Right. So I just know that they did Lady Bird together.
Right. So anyway, do you think that just kind of like having that like familiarity with them as a pair?
I don't know if it's that. I think that there's definitely And you're going to have to remind me who directed the 94 Little Women, but
Gillian Armstrong,
right? But I think that when, with Greta Gerwig, there's definitely a more auteur quality behind what she does. And that as an actor herself, she knows actors. And I think that, because Timothée Chalamet and Saoirse Ronan had worked with her in the past, there's a comfort and a trust there. And I imagine that this set was also just very collaborative. I just get that feeling, knowing what I know about Greta Gerwig's roots in like independent film and working with Noah Baumbach so much. And I don't know, I just feel like there's more to the relationship that comes through on screen.
And I feel like Laura Dern is another one of those actors who, when Laura Dern signs on, she's really invested and will definitely be a collaborator.
Yes. And
especially in this setting. Like I'm sure when she's on set for like the new Jurassic World, she's just kind of like, all right, where am I fixing my eyes when I'm screaming?
Yeah. Right. But something like,
but I'm sure like
Story,
on a set like
Noah
this,
Baumbach, speaking of.
And it feels like this is really where she thrives. I mean, I'm just,
and also
big long time
Laura
fan.
Dern and Saoirse Ronan. What a perfect pairing for like a mother-daughter situation. My goodness, they look so natural together. It's great, and I mean the others as well, but like those two especially just were dynamite.
So I think overall, the 94, like you said, it's serviceable. It fits in right at that time with that. Let's make a pretty adaptation of this book, and we'll get Oscar nominations for costumes, and things like, and it'll look really pretty, and families can go see it, and like elementary school and literature and like middle school teachers can buy copies. And it's like it seems like a good Cliff's Notes version of the book, like a good serviceable kind of by the numbers adaptation.
Right. Yeah.
But where the 2019 version, it seems to stray a little bit from the formula, and those risks pay off.
And I also want to give the 2019 version credit for its beautiful cinematography. There's this one shot especially where I believe it's Joe and Beth, and they're just kind of like embracing each other while like sitting on like the sand. And there's this shot where like the wind is kind of blowing the sand towards them, and they're kind of center framed in the camera, and it's just like, oh, it's beautiful.
It's so funny. I can picture the shot that you're talking about.
It was a real joy to watch the 2019 version again, and really fun to watch the 94 version. I don't want to knock that one at all.
No.
But we haven't talked about Susan Sarandon.
No, we have not talked about Susan Sarandon, really. I mean, we don't talk about Susan. No.
Susan Sarandon, it felt weird. And what's funny is like when we were talking about doing this movie, you were just, the way that you said it was, oh, I'll watch the Susan Sarandon version. And it's like, it's interesting that for you, it's that character and Susan Sarandon that is the way that you identify that movie. Whereas for the 2019 version, I think of it as the Greta Gerwig Little Women, or maybe the Saoirse Ronan Little Women. Not the Laura Dern, because those are not the main characters. It's, it's not really about them so much.
I think it's just Susan Sarandon is, I mean, and I don't think it's not necessarily about like who's the biggest star in the movie. And at that time, I would say it was still Susan Sarandon, even though Winona Ryder certainly.
Winona Ryder was a rising star.
I mean, by then she had already done she had already done quite a bit by 94 was the same year as like Reality Bites was earlier
no,
that
absolutely,
year,
but
and,
she wasn't at
Susan Sarandon
was a star.
was a like I mean bona fide for over for 20 years.
Right.
And so I connected with Susan Sarandon, and even though I had never watched the movie like beginning to end, I had caught bits and pieces of it, and I think it stuck out to me. I think partially because it was Susan Sarandon, but also because of the name Marmee. And how they called her Marmee. And I remember like seeing it and not being sure, like, is she their mother? Is it like on Webster when he said that he likes to call her ma'am because it sounds like mom? I forget Webster's like foster mother in that, whatever. I know the actress was Susan Clark, but
what her name was?
It was George
Ma'am
Papadopoulos. Ma'am Papadopoulos. Yeah, because it sounds like mom.
Yeah.
Anyway, I
like how he knew that it was Papadopoulos, but we can't remember her first name.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. Well, yeah. And Susan Clark and Alex Karras were married in real life. So
is that right?
There's that. So they had a Chalamet Ronan type Caddis. Yes, they had that type of thing. So okay. Now it comes around. So there's a Japanese animated series from the 80s based on Little Women, and it's not like some like anime punk version of Little Women where like Joe has pink hair and like wears Daisy Dukes and has a pen that like can slice through metal.
Not to generalize an excellent medium, like
I'm not generalizing an excellent medium, but I'm just saying, like, from all of the anime that I've seen, that's not out of place. But this is an 80s animated version, and it basically, like, it stretches out the story. And I think it might even, like, go into adapting Joe's Boys. But it's, like, Filmation quality animation in that.
Right.
There's been the musicals, stage adaptations, and BBC and PBS and all sorts of things. So I'm gonna ask you.
Okay.
What you
usually
do?
I have you go first, but I'm going first this time. All right.
I know I'm flipping that.
No,
shit
I like
on you.
it. So here's what I'm thinking for this one. So this takes place. It's Civil War era. In Massachusetts, I don't know if I'd call it like a city, but it's definitely a vibrant community.
Well,
it's Concord, yeah, but like at the time, it's not like big city.
No, it's not Boston.
No,
but yeah.
So I'm just setting the scene here. We've got
Gotcha. Okay,
and. We're following these people who are, the father is a soldier fighting in the war, and you have these people. There's this wealth discrepancy, amongst neighbors, and there's a lot of social issues that you're seeing there. But what I think would be really neat to do with this world, and I'm not talking about specifically the March family, March Madness, just wanted to say those words right now, would be to do a tabletop Dungeons and Dragons style game where it's all about, Concord, Massachusetts in, Civil War era, and following some like varying different types of storylines, and you choose your character, you roll the dice to find out where you stand, economically, what your profession is, all these other things. And the look on your face, Dan, you look mortified.
I'm imagining the dungeon master sending them, "You must go on a quest to deliver Thanksgiving dinner to the
To the
scarlet
Hummels."
fever-infected German family." To the Hummels. So, all right, I'm going to...
Well, but that's the thing, is it's
battle.
not specifically Little Women, the game. It's, it's this world. So it could include delivering, your Thanksgiving or your Christmas morning breakfast or whatever it was to this unfortunate family. But it could also just be like someone who lives 2 miles down the road and what their story is. We all got stories, Dan. That's what I've got. I wanted to really stretch myself for this one because this is a well-worn territory, as you said.
What are you going to do with it?
What are you going to do with it? Tabletop Dungeons and Dragons style game. That's what I got.
That is definitely out of the box thing.
Yeah. What do you have?
Because you'd take that game right out of the box.
Doesn't need a box. You just need some slices of paper, some 20-sided dice,
some slices of paper. Slice me up.
Give me a slice. Okay, so when I was in elementary school or junior high or something, somebody asked a teacher for a slice of paper, and it was the funniest thing I ever heard in my life.
I feel like I did not hear this story, but I've heard people I wonder if that's a regionalism.
I don't know.
I wonder if that's something where it's like if you live in one area, you call it a tissue, in another place you just call it a Kleenex, even if it's not.
Well, I don't know if that's a regional thing. I think that's just
no, that's it's
really?
It's a regional thing. In some places you'd say, "Give me a tissue." In other places you'd say, "Give me a Kleenex," even if it's not a Kleenex. Same thing with Coke. You'd just say, "Hey,
I know that
give me a Coke. What kind of Coke do you want?" Sprite.
Yeah.
Pepsi. So what would I do? I was thinking more about the story, and I looked at what's been done with it, and it feels like every retelling of this is very faithful, even if it's like Greta Gerwig's, which takes some liberties plot-wise, but it's always set in the same time and place. And of course, and you're thinking, well, it's Civil War, and we are not the only country that has had a civil war. And even if you take that element of it, I think that you could do a loose adaptation. I'd be interested to see a loose adaptation of Little Women set somewhere, maybe like I was thinking about what a book like Little Women meant at the time in terms of women's rights and equality in the country. And I was like, well, what about a Saudi Arabia set Little Women? And I mean, maybe there's not a civil war, but I think there's enough, there's enough where you could make that parallel. I don't think it would take. I don't think it would be a huge stretch to to still make the story work. And the story of the father being at war, which I think is important because it speaks to the values of the family.
Sure.
That the father is off fighting. And actually, I meant to ask you, because in the 1994 version, I thought there was this really neat little poignant scene when they go to, it's like the coming out party, and or the debutante ball or whatever, and one of the girls they're basically making fun and saying why does your father care if there's slaves, and oh well, because of this war we have to pay more for our dresses now. And really showing that even in the North there was an apathy towards slavery. Did the 2019 version include that?
Because the 2019 version, all that you really see is she kind of goes in and she's wearing her just regular dress, and just the girl next to her is just you can borrow one of my dresses and I'm going to call you Daisy. And it's just very much just they're there because they're prissy girls and she wants to be one of them. And then Lori shows up and ruins her night.
So it's not so much a she's all that thing like in the 94 version. It's like, we're going to give you a makeover.
Yeah.
And
No, it's not like that in the 2019. It's pretty much just like, you can have my dress. Don't worry. I have another one.
Because in the 94, there's some of that like Northern apathy towards slavery where they're the ones who benefit from it.
Yeah.
So and that's an issue. And like Joe gets kind of pissed at Meg for playing along.
Right.
Because she makes a comment about it and Joe hears it and Joe's like, what the?
Yeah.
Not exactly. Maybe in the new version. So that's my general idea, is to bring this story to a culture, and maybe you said it now, or maybe you said it at a different time. Maybe you said it in Afghanistan during the Russian occupation.
Sure.
In the 80s, and you can still, I think you can still do so much of this story, but I think there are other cultures that need this story, and I think about somewhat similar stories like Persepolis, the Marjane Satrapi, which graphic novel adapted into an excellent film. But, stories about women following, pursuing their dreams, pursuing their passions, despite the forces working against them. And I think that you could add, I think there's more to it, because in the Society of Little Women, this 19th century New England, like, there's consequences for women who don't act womanly,
right?
But it's mostly just like people give you a weird look, like how Marmee talks about how fainting women are just a result of us being kept inside, hunched over sewing machines, wearing corsets that are too tight, and then Stoltz just like gives her a weird look.
Stoltz.
But in he's just Stoltzing all over the place with that weird haircut of his. He looks like a little Dutch boy from the paint can. Anyway, I think there's so much that can be done with it. And when you have the real consequences of, like, women can get arrested for wearing certain types of clothing in some societies. So putting the story of these women in that context, I think could be really powerful, and could do a lot of good for those cultures, as Little Women did in America.
Yeah, definitely. I like it. You went a different route than I did. I get it. It's fine.
I went, I did not, my creativity did not expand that far to the tabletop board game version. And no, I think I just felt like, hey, why is there not a Little Women adaptation in another culture? And maybe there's one that didn't pop up in my research. If you know of one, email us, ruinedchildhoodspod@gmail.com, and let us know what your preferred Little Women is. You might like the 1933 version better than both of these. Right? We don't know.
We'd love to know. Yeah, and also, our social media stuff is all in our link tree, which is in this episode's description. In addition to, we're bringing this back, I think, for this next month, we're going to be having the links for what we're going to be talking about on our next episode. Dan, would you like to tell everybody what that's going to be?
For our very next episode, we're taking a little turn here in April, and we're going to be doing, focusing on cinematic music videos. And there is no better cinematic music video universe to start in than the Jim Steinman cinematic music video universe. And we will be taking on Meatloaf's I Would Do Anything for Love, But I Won't Do That, Bonnie Tyler's Total Eclipse of the Heart, and Air Supply's Making Love Out of Nothing at All Jim Steinman penned songs, all magnificently, wonderfully, theatrically over the top music videos that we
That's
can't wait
right.
to talk about.
I am so excited. This is one that I pitched to Dan at one point, and it was kind of like a head turn look up. I'm like, huh, how would that work? But I think
We're gonna find out.
find out. I think it's gonna be really fun. The links to those music videos will be in this episode's description. And yeah, I don't know. I'm so excited because
I just have to. I'm not going to be able to hold back from singing.
oh boy.
I rarely can, but like it's. Apologizing in advance and saying you're welcome as well.
Yeah. Well, Dan, as you venture off to travel to Europe with Aunt March, I wish you a good journey.
As I march off.
As you march off.
Good journey.